AI 901 is still a fundamentals exam. You should not expect to build a full application from scratch, train a neural network by hand, or solve advanced programming problems. But it is more technical than AI 900. Microsoft lists skills like Python syntax, REST API calls, SDKs, command line tools, prompts, Microsoft Foundry, lightweight client applications, and AI workloads. So yes, you may see questions that look a little like code. The goal is not to become a Python developer. The goal is to recognize simple patterns, where the prompt is, which value selects the model, what the credential does, which message is the system instruction, where the response text comes from, and what parameter is missing. In this lesson, we will walk through 12 representative examples. These are practice examples, not real Microsoft exam questions. Think of AI 901 coding adjacent questions as code reading, not code writing. You should be comfortable reading short snippets, recognizing strings, lists, dictionaries, JSON-like objects, simple SDK calls, REST request parts, and small workload patterns. You should not expect long programming assignments, advanced algorithms, or manual model training. The rule is simple. Read small snippets, identify missing pieces, understand SDK, REST, and message patterns, but do not worry about building full apps from scratch. Practice 1. Nested JSON response reading. On screen, the key line stores response choices, first item, message, content, into answer. Follow the path to the content field. A developer receives this response from an AI model. What value is stored in answer? Here are the choices. A. Assistant. B. The ticket is about a delayed shipment. C. Choices. D. The entire response dictionary. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, B. The code goes into the first item in choices, opens the message object, and reads the content field. That field contains the text, "The ticket is about a delayed shipment." Pattern to remember, watch the field path. The code opens response, goes to choices, takes the first item, then reads message content. Practice 2. Where should behavior instructions go? On screen, both messages are marked user. The first one says always answer in JSON, which is a behavior rule. A developer wants the assistant to always answer in JSON. They write this message list. Which change best follows the usual chat message pattern? Here are the choices. A. Change the first message role to system because it contains behavior instructions. B. Change the second message role to assistant because it contains the user's request. C. Put both messages in the tool role because JSON is a tool output format. D. Remove the second message because system instructions replace user prompts. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, A. Instructions about how the assistant should behave, such as always answer in JSON, usually belong in a system message. The user's actual request remains in a user message. Pattern to remember, watch the role labels. Behavior rules belong in system. The user request stays in user. Practice 3. SDK authentication. On screen, the client is created with an endpoint and default Azure credential. A developer reviews this SDK setup code. What is the main purpose of default Azure credential in this code? Here are the choices. A. It discovers the project endpoint automatically. B. It provides credentials the SDK can use to authenticate to Azure. C. It stores the model-generated answer text. D. It replaces the model or deployment name in the request. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, B. Default Azure credential is used for authentication. It gives the SDK a way to authenticate to Azure using supported credential sources. Pattern to remember, Watch the setup values. Endpoint is where, credential is who, model is what. Practice 4. Missing model/deployment parameter. On screen, the model call includes input text, but no model or deployment value. A developer writes this model call. The app must send the prompt to a specific deployed model. Which value is most likely missing from the request? Here are the choices. A. The model or deployment name. B. The generated output text. C. The assistant role from a previous response. D. The customer's sentiment label. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer: A. A model call usually needs to know which model or deployment should process the request. In similar SDK patterns, that value appears as something like model equals ... Pattern to remember: the request has input text, but it still needs a model or deployment name. Practice 5. REST request body. On screen, the post request has headers, then a JSON body with a messages array and user content. A developer sends this HTTP request. Which part contains the user's prompt? Here are the choices. A. The post method. B. The authorization header. C. The JSON request body. D. The domain name in the URL. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer: C. The prompt text appears in the JSON body inside the messages array. Content: summarize this ticket. Pattern to remember: REST requests split into method, URL, headers, and body. The prompt usually lives in the JSON body. Practice 6. Hard-coded secret. On screen, the prototype stores an API key in code before creating the client. A developer writes this prototype. The developer plans to commit this file to a shared repository. What is the best security concern to raise? Here are the choices. A. The API key should not be hard-coded or committed to source control. B. The endpoint must always be stored inside the model response. C. The API key should be copied into every prompt so the model can authenticate. D. The API key should be moved into a system message so the assistant can use it securely. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer: A. Secrets such as API keys should not be hard-coded into source files or committed to a repository. A safer pattern is to use managed identity, environment variables, or a secret store depending on the scenario. Pattern to remember: the security issue is not syntax. It is where the secret is stored and whether it gets committed. Practice 7. Wrong service for the scenario. On screen, the code calls synthesize speech with text and stores audio. That direction matters. A developer needs to transcribe recorded customer calls into text. They write this code. Why does this code not match the requirement? Here are the choices. A. It uses speech synthesis, which converts text to audio, instead of speech recognition, which converts audio to text. B. It should keep synthesize speech, but pass the recorded audio file as the text value. C. It needs sentiment analysis because every customer call must be classified as positive or negative before transcription. D. It should store audio in transcript.txt because synthesis and recognition return the same type of result. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer: A. The requirement is to transcribe recorded calls, so the app needs audio to text. The code does the opposite, text to audio. Pattern to remember: follow the direction of the data. Text to audio is synthesis. Audio to text is recognition. Practice 8. Document extraction. On screen, the document client extracts fields from an invoice file and reads total amount. A developer processes scanned invoices with this code. What is the code mainly doing? Here are the choices. A. Reading raw OCR text from the invoice without mapping values to named fields. B. Extracting structured fields from an invoice document. C. Training a new custom invoice model from labeled invoice examples. D. Summarizing the invoice contents into a short paragraph. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, B. The method name extract field, the schema equals invoice, and the access to result.jobs, total amount, show structured document field extraction, not raw OCR, model training, or summarization. Pattern to remember. Look for a document input, an extraction method, and structured fields coming out. Practice 9. Missing input text. On screen, the request chooses a model but does not provide the ticket text. A developer is preparing a request to summarize a support ticket. The app should send the ticket text to the model. What is the most likely missing part of the request? Here are the choices. A. The input or prompt text that the model should summarize. B. The generated response text from the model. C. The project endpoint inside response-output_text. D. The sentiment label for the support ticket. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, A. The request selects a model, but it does not provide the text to process. A summarization request needs an input prompt or ticket text. Pattern to remember, the model name is present, but the actual text to process is missing. Practice 10. Endpoint versus model name. On screen, one value creates the project client endpoint, and a different value chooses the model for the response call. A developer reviews this SDK setup and call. Which statement best describes the difference between project ended and model equals GPT-5 mini? Here are the choices. A. Project end identifies where the project/service is, while model selects the deployed model for the request. B. Project edit contains the user prompt, while model contains the generated answer. C. Project ended is the credential, while model is the API key. D. Project mint and model are interchangeable names for the same value. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, A. The endpoint is a setup value that tells the SDK where to connect. The model or deployment name tells the runtime call which model should process the input. Pattern to remember. Endpoint is where the service lives. Model is what processes the request. Practice 11. Which line is wrong? On screen, a behavior instruction is written as another user message instead of a system message. A developer wants the assistant to follow a behavior rule and then answer a user question. Which line should be changed? Here are the choices. A. Change the first message role from user to system. B. Change the second message role from user to tool. C. Change content to endpoint in both messages. D. Remove the second message because the behavior rule already tells the assistant what to do. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer, A. The first message is a behavior rule. In common chat message patterns, durable behavior instructions belong in a system message. Pattern to remember, if a line controls behavior, it should not be another ordinary user request. Practice 12. Unsafe logging. On screen, the app logs the full prompt and full response after generating a model answer. A developer adds this logging to a support ticket summarization app. Some tickets may contain customer names, account numbers, or private case details. What is the best improvement? Here are the choices. A. Mask or avoid logging sensitive prompt and response content, and keep only the minimum diagnostic data needed. B. Log the full prompt and response only in production because production logs are more useful. C. Log only the first 500 characters without checking whether those characters contain sensitive data. D. Rely on the model deployment's content filter to remove all private information from application logs. Pause for a moment and choose the best answer. Correct answer: A. Prompts and model outputs can contain sensitive information. A safer implementation avoids logging sensitive content directly, masks it, or stores only minimal diagnostic data. Pattern to remember: prompts and outputs can contain private data, so full logging is a privacy risk. If you see code on AI-901, do not panic. Look for the pattern. Endpoint means where. Credential means who. Model means what. Prompt means input. Response means output. Workload means goal. You are learning how the pieces fit together, not building a full production application from scratch.